Hello, MCU fans. Today is the final in a series that I've been doing on the Marvel TV shows prior to Disney Plus and how they fit into the overall MCU timeline. Of course, people have different views on whether they're canon, whether they're not canon. My argument is that they were originally canon, and Feige's never said they're not canon, so, canon until he says different. But regardless of what you think about them, hopefully this will encourage you to go check them out because they're a lot of fun. Whether they're canon or not, they add to the overall MCU tapestry, and so they're well worth checking out. All right, so let's dive right in and see what we can find out. As usual, I need to say thanks to the group that has helped me all along the way. The Marvel Cinematic Universe Wiki, fantastic. I could never stop talking about it. The timeline is so amazing. There's also a Discord that goes with the wiki. And then Robbie, Drew, you guys are the dynamic duo. I'm not going to say which is Batman and which is Robin, but Robbie, you're Robin. Anyway, Drew, Robbie, you guys are awesome. I'm kidding you. Thank you. Could not have done this without you. All right. So, as I mentioned, this has been part of a series of looking at all of these pre-Disney Plus TV shows. So we started with the Netflix Defenders and those 6 shows. We moved to the ABC TV shows, which included, of course, Agent Carter, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Slingshot series, and the Inhumans. Moved to Freeform and Hulu, which brought in Cloak and Dagger, Runaways, and Hellstrom. And now finally we're going to look at newscasts in the MCU. Rising Tide, New York Bulletin, Newsfront, and Daily Bugle. So let's see where these all fit in. Now, what's interesting, this is going to look a little different from a timeline standpoint than I've done before, because in each and every case, these newscasts, if you will, were released either prior to or right after a major event in the MCU, and they either lead into it or they follow up on it. So rather than showing a massive timeline, I'm going to show how each feed into whatever series they're, giving you information on. So Rising Tide is the first one. It was released in May of 2013, as we'll see, and it ties in nicely to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1. Kind of gives you some information about it. There's nothing vital in this. I mean, if you could avoid watching it and still enjoy Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but it's just kind of a fun little tease for the show. All right, so for those that don't know, Rising Tide is the group that Skye, one of the main characters, who I really hope we get to see again, she was a part of that group. It was a hacktivist group that was basically hacking into government files and learning about, top secrets and putting them out for everyone to see. And as she says, you cannot stop the rising tide. Also, one cool little tie-in, one of my sources, she says at some point, is this guy, Micro. So it was kind of a fun little tie between Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Skye and Rising Tide, and of course, Micro from The Punisher. So that's kind of fun. It makes sense they would all be working together in some regard. I don't think he was officially a member of Rising Tide, but certainly was someone who enjoyed hacking into government information and putting it out there for everyone to see. So there were basically 5 videos, very short little clips, released online and very cleverly released unlisted. So you had to know the address to get to them. So I give some examples of some of them that are actually still out there. S.H.I.E.L.D. evidence caught on tape, released May 13 of 2013. What really happened here? S.H.I.E.L.D. operative spotted, again, May 13 of 2013. So they were all dropped in May of 2013, right before season 1 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So what were these things? Okay, so they showed 5 different quick little clips. And the first one was from Iron Man 2 of Iron Man taking flight. And notice they do a lot of color enhancement, image saturation, contrast, trying to figure out what are we seeing here? Who is this? What's going on? And then here's a closer view of Iron Man. And each of these clips are probably 20 seconds long. They're really quick, but just kind of clever. Just kind of showing how this group is trying to find government secrets and get them out for everyone to see. The next one is footage from the Stark Expo attacks. This is when you can kind of see really fast there, Iron Man flying across the cars, and then they're, zoom enhance and trying to figure out what was the speed that they were going at, just kind of clever. This one is interesting. They called it Evidence of Real-Life Monster, and you can tell what that is, right? This is the Battle of Harlem between Hulk and Abomination. And you can see how they're, again, analyzing it and trying to figure out what are we seeing here. And then they had the final 2 are basically, we don't know when they actually happened or if they're even, events that we should know about in the MCU because they don't look like anything familiar to me. But they're basically saying, hey, this is S.H.I.E.L.D. This is this secret government organization. We know who you are. Notice they zoom in. We see you. We found you. And isn't it funny? This super secret organization, why do they always use their name and their logo on everything? So ridiculous. Worst secret organization ever. Then they have this one here too. What really happened here? SHIELD operatives spotted. That's interesting. It's a collapse in the street. You wonder if this is the result of a battle, maybe the Battle of New York, maybe the Battle of Harlem, who knows? But something caused an underground collapse, and here they are trying to figure out what's going on. So then they finally, after the last one on their website, actually said, SHIELD is on to us, going dark. We will be back when they least expect it. Pretty cool. So, by the way, I should mention, every one of these newscasts are on, I left a pinned comment that has links in case you want to go watch them and actually see them. So anyway, check them out afterwards. Hope you'll enjoy them. And in case you're ever doing a rewatch of the entire MCU, yeah, it's worth checking out these videos right before you start with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Okay, then we move on to WHIH Newsfront, season number 1. Now, WHIH as a newscast has appeared throughout the MCU movies over time, but they also had their own Twitter account, which then had posted some videos as well. So we'll check these out. And these all come out around the time frame of July 2015 and lead very nicely into Ant-Man, which is from July to August of 2015. And in fact, these really help with that timeline placement, you'll see. So, okay, some of the episodes you can actually find on Disney+. They're on the Ant-Man under Extras, way over to the end. There's actually 5 total episodes in season 1, and they only have 3 of them, which is odd. They're the most important 3, but still kind of strange. But yeah, I wish Disney Plus would put all of them out. I don't get why you have to go to all these other sources to find them. But again, in a pinned comment, I do have links where you can watch them all on YouTube if you want to check them out. All right, so what do we have here? Well, season 1, episode 1 is kind of the promo for Newsfront, telling you, what's it all about. Of course, we meet Christine Everhart, who you remember, she was in several of the Iron Man movies, great character. Nice to see her back again. And she's just telling you what the news station is all about. And this is really important. One of the things she mentions is we're going to have an interview with Scott Lang, who was involved in the case of the former VistaCorp, he is the case of the former VistaCorp employee and cyber criminal, Scott Lang, who is set to be released from federal prison on July 17. That is really important. This actually gives us the date when Ant-Man is happening. Now, whether or not, again, these are canon still, I don't know. I don't even care, because they were canon when they were produced. So the bottom line is this is a very key timeline date given to us. So that tells us Ant-Man starts July 17th. Okay, episode 2 discusses some of the fallout from Sokovia. Remember, this would be in a May timeframe of 2015, so the Age of Ultron had just occurred. So they're still talking about that and the importance of what happened there and the terrible deaths that occurred, obviously. And then the news ticker, as so often in Marvel, gives us fun little teases. And this one's interesting. Notice down below it says, renowned astrophysicist Jane Foster to lecture on her experiences with inner space and dimensions. So this is cool because from a timeline standpoint, this would be around the time frame that we learned in Love and Thunder that Jane was off really getting involved in doing magazine articles. In fact, this is a clip from Love and Thunder, and she was giving lectures. So that ticker, keep in mind, the ticker was in 2015. That's when they released that news ticker. Love and Thunder's in 2024, yet this works perfectly, because this would have been the point during the flashback of their dating relationship where they were drifting apart. Thor kept leaving to go on adventures, and Jane was really involved with her profession. I love it. Almost 9 years apart, and yet they fit perfectly. Love it, Marvel. Love it. All right, so we move to episode 3, and this shows footage of Lang's break-in at VistaCorp. So these are basically, I don't know how they got a hold of them. Probably they were released to the public, I guess. But they were footage from the cameras, and you could see Scott there on the computer. And, of course, he relieved VistaCorp of $4 million of their money and returned it to the people that had been scammed. And it also includes the aftermath of him driving the car into the pool and them trying to pull it out. It's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. So then episode 4 is a Wired Insider interview with Darren Cross. Doesn't reveal a lot of things you don't already learn from the movie, but it does again help with timeline placement, because one of the things he says is that everyone can plan on Pimtech unveiling a new venture this summer. So of course he's talking about his learning the technology of the shrinking tech. So this summer, that's why I'm saying Ant-Man probably ends around an August timeframe, because it's a little hard to tell. You could argue maybe the movie has some gaps in it, but this would certainly make us think, no, it doesn't. It moves along very quickly. All right, so season 1, episode 5 is an interview with Scott Lang. It's pretty humorous. Again, you don't really learn anything new, but anything with Paul Rudd is worth watching, right? And then one of the news tickers, again, gives us a very important timeline hint. It says PIM Technologies CEO Darren Cross says astonishing new venture is now coming this week. So earlier he was kind of teasing it's coming this summer. Literally, and this is around the July timeframe, he's saying it's coming in a week. Now, there were some delays that we saw in the movie. It didn't quite happen as soon as he thought, but still, this is putting us on pace for the movie moving really quickly. Why do I keep bringing this up? Well, Ant-Man has a date, and the date has caused so much confusion. It's probably hard to read, but if you look under the 8/18, it looks like it's either the 8th or the 9th, I can't remember, but of October. So that's made a lot of people think, oh, so Ant-Man covers several months. But as we've seen from what they really intended from these news tickers and the interviews, no, it was probably a couple weeks. And I'm betting that this was just the date that happened to be on the phone at the moment when they filmed it and they didn't edit it out. I would love for them to go back and scrub it. If it's not accurate, which I don't believe it is, scrub it. Take a minute and go back and just remove it from the movie. But anyway, I love the fact that these WHIH newscasts filled in some backstory on Ant-Man, but also gave us some real important timeline dates. So again, do you need to watch it? No. Would I recommend it? Yeah, it's very entertaining, and you would watch it right before you would watch Ant-Man. Okay, now before we get to season 2 of Newsfront, we need to jump over to basically a one-shot by the New York Bulletin, and this leads directly into Iron Fist, which I know Iron Fist is probably the least popular of all the Defenders shows, but if you've never seen it, it's worth watching. And if you've never seen Iron Fist, first, watch this thing. So, New York Bulletin, they did a digital download. It's actually still on the Netflix YouTube channel. And again, I have a link to it as a pinned comment. And yeah, it's literally on Netflix's YouTube. So, we meet the Meachums, Ward and Joy. Ward is the CEO of Rand Enterprises, and Joy is his chief counsel, and of course, their brother and sister. Very, very important characters throughout the entire series. Some of the best characters of the series, actually. I really enjoyed both of them. We learned a little bit of the history. The Meacham and Rand family are introduced, and that they did this venture together of Rand Oil and Chemical. Now, Rand, of course, is the family for Danny Rand, a la Iron Fist. So that's him there as a little kid. Then we learn the tragic situation where the Rand family gets into an accident somewhere over the Himalayas, and then we find out their bodies were never found. Of course, no surprise, because Danny Rand becomes Iron Fist, so of course he's going to be okay. And none of these are spoilers for Iron Fist, by the way, because this is all, we learned this in the very first couple episodes. So this is just a nice intro to some of the backstory that you're going to learn from the series. We learn that Harold Meacham then has a major illness, which also plays very much into season 1. And that's why Ward, 18-year-old Ward, is now the head of the boardroom. Kind of feels a little Tony Stark-like in that regard, but believe me, very, very different. He has a very different personality from Tony Stark. But yeah, he ends up being in charge of the boardroom at a young age. So yeah, it's a very short, probably about 2 minutes long, but you get to meet both of them. And again, if you've never seen Iron Fist, this is a great intro to it. And even if you're doing a rewatch, I recommend watching it before Iron Fist. All right, now we jump to Newsfront WHIH Season 2. And this is right before and literally leading up to the opening scene of Civil War. Okay, so Season 2, Episode 1, now we have Christine Everhart being joined by Will Adams. He's a political correspondent, and it's kind of fun having both of them there. No surprise, leading up to Civil War, right? The two of them debate both the sides of the argument. Christine takes more of the attitude of we need regulation over these heroes, and Will takes more of the, hey, I just want them to do their thing and take care of us. attitude. So kind of cool to see their point counterpoint throughout these. They debate the fallout from the superhero actions. Again, Sokovia would be the big one at this point because Lagos in Civil War has not yet occurred. It's about to. It's going to lead right up to that. But they're talking about, is it worth it? Is this worth it? Then the news ticker, this is kind of fun. The news ticker literally shows us the transition of Ross from the Army to Secretary of State. And since these were first released in April and then moved into May, we know that Ross became Secretary of State. Therefore, he was Secretary of State for a very short period of time before Civil War. So notice in the ticker, Lieutenant General Thaddeus Ross announces retirement from the Army. Very cool. Then we move to episode 2, and it's kind of a on the street interview of viewers to see, hey, what do you think? Who should be bearing the cost for all these damages? That's kind of fun. And this is fun. The news ticker has a Easter egg for Trevor Slattery, of course, the Mandarin. And this is after he was broken out of prison in the one shot and way before, he shows up in Shang-Chi. But notice it says, production begins on new TV movie, Man or Mandarin? The Trevor Slattery story. It's not a tongue twister, but I made it one, clearly. So that's kind of fun. Then there's questions in episode 3 on what's the White House going to do? Where do they take a stand on this whole Avengers thing? I mean, it really makes it feel real world. I wish they would have kept doing these. I would have loved them having different newscasters, whoever wants to be in front of the camera. It doesn't matter to me. But I loved the intros to what's going on in the MCU. It just makes it feel more real. In this case, they're talking about the cleanup from Winter Soldier. Not just the issues in Sokovia, but what about all that mess in Washington, D.C.? And this is kind of fun because timeline-wise, this is just a few months before Civil War and therefore Homecoming. And remember, in Homecoming, it's very hard to read, but if you look at the little screen there as the bus is driving by, it says Triskelion cleanup. They're referring to the same cleanup that they're talking about here. So that's pretty cool. See, it all ties together. I just love it. All right, so now in episode 3, there's reports that Ross is being approached by the president. Of course, we know where he's going to go, Secretary of State. President Ellis and General Thaddeus Ross discussing potential career in politics. Very cool. All right, then also the news ticker does tie in a little bit to S.H.I.E.L.D. Notice down below it says Transia Corporation announces interim CEO. I really can't go into that because it goes into a little spoilers for season 3 on why that's important. But trust me, that is a Easter egg for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Later, there's another one talking about Hydra eradicated, says the Ellis administration. This is referring really both to Age of Ultron, where they wiped out a bunch of Hydra, but also we continue to see the fight against Hydra in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And around the time when this particular newscast came out, there were some very significant things that happened in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 3. Then this news ticker has a fun little Ant-Man Easter egg. Massive ant-like insect sightings continue to pour in from San Francisco suburbs. Nice. Then, by the time we get to episode 4, now Ross is named Secretary of State. So he's gone from retiring from the military to being approached by the president, and now, sure enough, General Ross named Secretary of State. And then President Ellis himself gives an interview to WHIH. Very cool. You remember he was the president, of course, in Iron Man 3 and shows up in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and other places. Really cool president. In fact, I did a whole video on the different presidents in the MCU, and boy, there's a lot more to that than you might think at first. It's far more confusing than one might think. It's a very interesting video to check out. But yeah, he is definitely the president at this point and does an interview with WHIH. And then this is kind of cool. The news ticker mentions the Hulk is still missing. Bruce Banner, a.k.a. the Hulk, reportedly still missing. And of course, this is after he left Earth for at the end of Age of Ultron. So very cool. Then another news ticker mentioning an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 3 plot. ATCU, which is an acronym from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. organization, continues investigation into militant organization that destroyed their facility. So yeah, lots of little mini tie-ins to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then finally, the last episode is released on May 3rd, which firmly places, therefore, Civil War's opening scene on May 3rd. And it is breaking news as we're seeing Captain America and the team with the issues that they ran into, obviously, in Lagos. Tie-ins to Crossbones, who we obviously know is in that opening scene, and the fact that he's being held responsible for starting this situation, obviously. And then we bring in the president again. President Ellis comes in to give his take on what's going on. So very, very cool. And again, very important for placing the beginning of Civil War firmly in May, particularly May 3rd of 2016. And then they finish, you notice down in the little, the closed captioning there, should our superheroes report to the government? Let us know. So this was, I think probably they were collecting votes at this point. Because remember how big the whole Civil War thing, are you Team Tony or are you Team Cap, Team Steve? So, their Twitter account right there, WHIH Official, is still out there. I mean, there are tons of tweets. I only went over the videos. There's tons of tweets with little Easter eggs. It's kind of fun to go check it out. All right, so again, you could watch this right before Civil War if you were interested, and it ties in very, very nicely. Now we move to dailybugle.net. Now, this is kind of interesting. So Sony would have been running this, not Marvel Disney, and they chose to basically follow up on a movie. Notice up to this point, everything has been leading into a TV show or a movie. This should definitely be watched after Far From Home, because as you'll see, it definitely contains spoilers for Far From Home. There's several videos, and they were released by the dailybugle.net online. And of course, my man, J. Jonah Jameson, was featured heavily in all of them. And there's a YouTube channel as well. And it was just awesome to hear JJJ saying, like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. There's a lot of different ways you can watch this. In fact, speaking of, they give all of those ways. Now, I did not check to see how many of these are still active. The YouTube definitely is, and I've got some links to that. But, they had everything down there. They had everything. All right. So Season 1, Episode 1 starts with the footage from Mysterio framing Spider-Man. Now it does not yet have the reveal that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, because I guess from an in-universe standpoint, they're still decrypting that part of the video. But the first one does release the Mysterio, hey, it's all Spider-Man's fault portion. Episode 2 actually has Flash Thompson's reaction to the battle on the Tower Bridge. It's really short, but it's kind of funny as he's just running around chaotically and recording himself. Episode 3 has JJJ ranting about Spider-Man and idolizing Mysterio, of course. You would expect nothing else from J. Jonah Jameson. Then finally, Episode 4, now they've decrypted the video and figured out that Mysterio basically outs Spider-Man, saying, hey, it's Peter Parker. So first we learn that Spider-Man is responsible for the death of Mysterio, and then they reveal, and by the way, Spider-Man is indeed Peter Parker. Man, what a bummer for him. I'll never forget watching the end of Far From Home and going, oh my gosh, where are they going to go with this? And then Episode 5 is now a direct hit piece on Spider-Man and technically Peter Parker, and talks about the Coney Island repairs, if you remember, from Homecoming, and how Coney Island is saying to Spider-Man, bug off, man. You caused a big mess. We still haven't got it fixed up yet. And then Episode 6 talks about London demanding payment for the damages. Now that we know it was Mysterio and we know it was Spider-Man and we know who Spider-Man is, the Prime Minister is basically saying to the President, you got to fix this, buddy. You got to fix this. Craziness. So again, as you can see, clearly, if you're going to watch this, you watch it after Far From Home. But it's a nice supplement to Far From Home. Kind of fun little extra details, I guess, if you will. Nothing vital, but just a lot of fun. All right, so then Daily Bugle Season 2 follows up right after No Way Home. Now, it actually is happening during No Way Home, which is kind of wild. You'll see as we go through this, some of the clips and scenes are things from the beginning, some of them more from the middle, some near the end, but still it makes sense to watch it after you watch the movie. So, first of all, they moved to TikTok. You gotta love it, right? Good old TikTok. And it's kind of cool because Betty Brant is now officially working for the Daily Bugle. It all comes home, right? I mean, in the comics, she worked for the Daily Bugle from the very beginning. So that's kind of cool that she's like an intern. And there's many funny jokes. By the way, these I found to be the funniest. These were some of the best gags. But really great to have her as an intern. Of course, J. Jonah Jameson shows up, storming his way through so many of the different segments. And then we get a few guest stars from the the movies. Coach Wilson, he's very funny in a little segment. All these TikToks are probably about a minute and a half at most, minute, just like any TikTok, very short. Flash Thompson has a funny appearance. Notice they list him as author, student, and patriot. Oh my gosh. Ned has an epic appearance. Because remember, they were dating in Far From Home. And now by No Way Home time frame, they're not dating anymore, obviously. But the awkwardness one would expect is definitely at play. And then they even get Peter Parker to appear. Notice, though, poor dude, he's Spider-Menace and public enemy number one. Why did he go in for an interview? What was he thinking? But he obviously did it because Betty is there and he probably trusted her, but oops. No, she's not bad. One of the running jokes is that she doesn't feel he's a menace, and she keeps talking about how much Spider-Man rescued her and helped. But it does tie into the movie, the poor perp walk where poor Peter's walking around and everybody's yelling and screaming at him. Betty mentions electrical storms in the city and sandstorms in the city, obviously referencing Electro and Sandman. So pretty cool. Then that's it for TikTok. Then they move back to doing some videos, and they're just more hit pieces on Spider-Man. This is kind of funny about the mess he leaves around, all the adhesive webbing around the city, which I think eventually dissolves, right? But not right away. And so, they got a big mess to clean up. Then one of the videos talks about Flash Thompson hawking his new book, Flashpoint, My Life as Peter Parker's Best Friend. Wow. But it's funny because J. Jonah Jameson's even slamming Flash Thompson in the video. So pretty hilarious. And then I love this one. This is such a great joke. They talk about savies. So they say there's a dangerous new trend on social media. Savies are a selfie taken while being saved by a superhero. So basically, young people are purposely putting themselves in dangerous situations in hopes of getting a savvy to boost their online social presence. That's epic. I mean, think about it. In the real world, some of the goofy things people do to get clicks and likes on their videos. Well, in universe, in the MCU, yeah, you would probably fake a dangerous situation, but in hopes that somebody will come save you, and then you get a savvy. Yeah, love it. Love it. And then it also includes an quote-unquote eyewitness account of the power grid incident, which obviously happened during No Way Home. Although it doesn't end up the way J. Jonah Jameson thought. I won't ruin it, but it's really funny. Might be my favorite of all the videos. So yeah, as you can see, it probably makes sense to watch these after. There would be no reason to watch it before, but it's a very nice companion after watching No Way Home. All right, and so then we move to the last thing, which is season 3 of the Daily Bugle. And yes, it leads into Morbius. And let me just say, there are a few people that like Morbius, but I'm assuming most people feel about the way, the standard fan feels, that it was not the best movie ever. Likewise, these are not the best lead-ins ever. I found them to be quite painful, to be honest. But nonetheless, if you want to watch a couple videos, a couple TikToks, actually, we're going to go back to TikTok. If you want to watch a few TikToks before you watch Morbius, may as well make it a pair and throw them in together. Okay, so Nikki Marina is now our social correspondent for the Daily Bugle. And, I mean, she does a decent job. I'll just leave it at that. And it does tie into the movie, gives a lot of backstory, no spoilers, so I would watch it before you watch the movie. But it gives some backstory about who Michael Morbius is and, turns his back on Science Award. Then we learn that there's a mysterious ghost ship linked to Horizon Labs in a later episode. There's only 4, by the way, 4 total TikToks on this. No spoilers again, but it just telling us, hey, something has something to do with Dr. Morbius, it seems. Then we meet one of his associates, Martine Bancroft. We learn that now Morbius trouble on the horizon. And finally, we get the obligatory shirtless scene from Jared Leto, who, by the way, he may not have been a great actor in this movie, and the script was, I felt, really subpar. But I'll give the dude this. He's ripped. He is ripped. And that's kind of the joke where she's talking about, oh my goodness, you didn't warn me before you put that up. So she loses her composure during it. This one was pretty funny, this particular TikTok. The rest of them, I don't know. They were a little cringy, but this one was funny. And speaking of cringy, so the last one she does from her closet because she's scared Morbius is going to get her. I'll just leave it at that. Anyway, so they show some footage of Morbius flying around and, saying, hey, he's a danger out there. And they bring up the fact, isn't that interesting? He did the blood plasma experimentation and creation of blood plasma. And does this all tie in, etc.? But yeah, newscast from the closet. Okay, whatever. I mean, if that's going to save you, just, I guess, stay in the closet for the rest of your life because I don't know. They were pretty cringy, honestly. They were pretty cringy. But nonetheless, check them out if you'd like. It's a good intro into Morbius. So there you go. That is all the different newscasts. And as you can see, again, you watch them either before or after something, and it just adds a little more, I guess you could say. So don't forget, I do have on my Google Drive a Google Sheet that now has everything, including the newscasts in there. Notice that you can sort it by release order or timeline order. It's got a type column that tells you what you're looking at, MCU movie, one shot, post-credit scene, etc. In fact, speaking of the post-credit scenes, I do break out anytime a post-credit scene makes more sense to watch at a different point. I mean, for the most part, you can watch them whenever you want, but sometimes they contain spoilers. So it's important to watch them at the right time. Also, you can, like I mentioned, you can sort by release order or by timeline order, because some people don't like timeline order. They like release order. And then you can also create a temporary view, and you can pick from the things you want to see. So if you just picked news, for example, from this list, there you go. Now you just see the news. And that's the things that we just discussed in this video. Obviously, you can also download this spreadsheet if you'd like, and then you can edit it and do whatever you'd like with it. But if I'm missing things or if anything's wrong in here, let me know. I'll get it updated because I want this thing to be accurate. And of course, I'll be adding more to the timeline as the MCU moves forward. And then lastly, I like to mention it each time. We do have a Discord server. I will leave a pinned comment that will let you join. I'll also have a link to that Google Drive, so you can check out the spreadsheet. And then don't forget, I have links to all of the newscast videos in case you want to check those out. Also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we can all continue to enjoy the ever-growing, ever-changing Marvel Cinematic Universe.